All right, we're about to crack one of the biggest mysteries in the history of science. But here's the twist. Our lead detective, it's not some physicist with a chalkboard full of equations. Nope. It's the master of deduction himself, Sherlock Holmes.
So I want you to forget everything you think you know from your high school physics class. Because what I'm about to tell you, it's like a hidden story, a secret history. We're going to treat the birth of modern physics like a cold case. And our main character, well, it's that world-famous private detective. Okay, so let's dive right in. The game, as they say, is afoot. Welcome to what we're calling Sherlock Holmes's final case. So picture this. It's 1905. The great Sherlock Holmes is retired, right? He's supposed to be chilling out, keeping bees. But when his old pal Dr. Watson comes to visit, it's pretty obvious his brain is anything but retired. No. It's latched onto a brand new kind of problem. A really big one. The mystery of light. And you gotta understand just how wild this is. I mean, this is the same guy who famously didn't even know the Earth went around the sun because he considered it useless trivia for his detective work. So for him to suddenly be obsessed with a fundamental problem in physics, well, that tells you this mystery must be a real doozy. So, what's the first clue in this massive investigation? It's a substance that's supposed to be everywhere, but it's also nowhere. This is the mystery of the ether, or as we'll call it, the case of the missing medium. So Holmes breaks it down for Watson and for us really simply. Think about it. Sound is a wave, right? It needs something to travel through. It needs a medium, like air. But light travels from the sun all the way to Earth through the total vacuum of space. So what's the medium for light? What's carrying that wave? Well, for a long time, scientists had a prime suspect. They called it the ether. And this wasn't some wacky fringe theory, This was the mainstream accepted explanation. Everyone believed this invisible stuff filled the entire universe and carried light waves. But when you actually start to investigate this suspect, the whole story just falls apart. I mean, get this. For the ether to work, it had to be completely still and everywhere in the universe. It had to be more rigid than steel to carry light waves, but at the same time, it had to offer literally zero resistance so planets could fly through it for billions of years without slowing down. It makes no sense. It's a total contradiction. And this is where Holmes just cuts right through all the scientific confusion. While everyone else was trying to figure out how this impossible substance could exist, Holmes makes his move. He declares to Watson, there is no such thing as ether. The suspect isn't just innocent, it's not even real. Okay, so getting rid of the ether is a huge step, but it just opens up an even bigger, weirder mystery. A clue that seems to break the laws of physics themselves. It's like finding a fresh footprint inside a room that's been sealed shut for 100 years. An impossible crime. All right, so here's where things get really weird. It's a battle between common sense and what an actual experiment found. Common sense tells you, right, if you're on a speeding train and you throw a ball forward, the ball's speed adds to the train speed. Simple. But the experiment showed that light doesn't play by those rules. The speed of light is always the same, no matter how fast you're moving toward it or away from it. It's bizarre. And this wasn't just some crazy idea. This was the shocking result of a real experiment in the late 19th century. Scientists totally expected that if they measured the speed of light in the same direction the Earth is moving, it would be a tiny bit faster. Makes sense, right? But they were wrong. There was no difference. None. The speed was exactly the same. This one result basically broke all of physics as they knew it. So this leads to a mind-bending question. For centuries, everybody just assumed that time and space were fixed. They were the absolute, unchanging stage on which everything happens. But what if that's the thing we got wrong? What if the one thing in the entire universe that never, ever changes is the speed of light? And this is the moment the case just breaks wide open. Because if the speed of light is the one thing that's constant, then something else has to be, well, not constant. This is the grand deduction. It all comes back to his most famous saying, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. So let's do that. Is there an ether? No, we eliminated that as impossible. Can the speed of light change? The experiment proved that's impossible too. So what's left? Okay, let's follow Holmes's logic here. Remember that super simple equation from school? Speed equals distance divided by time, right? Well, the experiment just proved with hard evidence that the speed part of that equation, for light anyway, is totally constant. It never changes. So, if that number can't change, then the other two, distance and time, they have to be the things that change. They can't be fixed. They have to be flexible or relative. And that is the improbable truth that's left over. The idea that time flows at a constant rate, that space is absolute, it's wrong. Our most fundamental understanding of reality is wrong. They are relative. It's a conclusion so mind-blowing, so out there that you could only get to it by proving everything else was impossible first. Pretty amazing, right? A truly fantastic piece of detective work by Holmes. But now it's time for the final act, the big reveal, where we shift from our little story to the incredible facts. Because as brilliant as this whole Sherlock Holmes deduction is, the true story is actually even more remarkable. Because somebody did solve this case in the real world. Just look at this timeline. It's incredible. It all goes down in the same year, 1905. So in our story, Holmes starts his investigation in February. But then, just a few months later, in June, a newspaper reports on this huge breakthrough from some 26-year-old civil servant nobody's ever heard of, and his theory? It confirms the exact same impossible idea, that time and space are relative. And the real genius who solved this case? The real detective here was a young patent clerk named Albert Einstein. He used the exact same clues that our fictional Holmes did, the non-existent ether and the constant speed of light, and he used them to completely revolutionize how we see the universe. So let's just boil this down to the key takeaway. Physics was in crisis. The old laws couldn't explain the new evidence. And that key piece of evidence was that the speed of light is constant for everyone. So the solution, the only way forward, was to let go of this ancient idea that space and time are absolute. This wasn't just a small correction, it was a complete revolution. And that leaves us with one final, really big thought, doesn't it? If our most basic, common sense ideas about time and space could be totally wrong, what other impossible truths are just sitting out there waiting to be discovered? What fundamental thing do we believe today that's just as wrong as absolute time was back then? Makes you wonder, huh?